Welcome, everybody, to the July 12th, 2023 Planning and Zoning meeting. A little bit of a change with the person that used to sit in this chair, so you'll see that a little differently on the agenda. But after elections, I'm the new chair for the board for this year, and we'd like to start with kind of seeing who's all here today, including our new members. So how do I do that with the...
Just call the roll.
Call the meeting to order.
Yeah.
And Chair Ben Ayers, and then go through Vice Chair Jeff Pitcher.
Here.
Board Member Troy Peterson.
Here.
Board Member Genesith Montes.
Here.
Board Member Jamie Blackman.
Blakeman, Jamie.
Blakeman. Read it quickly. And Board Member Jason Carpenter.
Here.
All right, thank you. All right, we'd like to start with reading the consent agenda and...
Chair, could you also ask for Board Member Crockett's attendance?
did I not get you, Jeff?
That's
Jeff
okay. I'm happy to be
You know why? 'Cause
anonymous.
You're at the top of the list.
It's a nice change. So yeah, I am here.
You
Thank
are
you.
here. Oh, we do that after this. I'll read the consent first. Well, okay, that's fine too. So we have a blue card for one of the items we're going to be discussing, for the one item actually we're going to be discussing. Is there any other blue cards that we have at this point, or any other comments? No. No, any other else? All right. So with that, we're going to be pulling off of 3A and 5A, the case with that as well, off consent. And with that, we'd like to read the rest of the agenda that will be a part of the consent. And Troy Peterson has volunteered to read that for us.
The consent agenda for July 12th, 2023 Planning and Zoning Board meeting. Item 2A, minutes from the June 28th, 2023 study session and regular meeting. Item 4A, ZON 22-01298, Red Oak Autism Academy within the 5,000 to 5,100 block of East University Drive, located west of Higley Road on the north side of University Drive, council use permit. And this request will allow for a private school, and the staff recommendation is continued to the July 26th, 2023 Planning and Zoning Board meeting. Item 4B, ZON 23-00222, Bright Path Childcare, within the 1,200 block of North Val Vista Drive and within the 3,500 block of East Brown Road, located west of Val Vista Drive and north of Brown Road, rezoned from office commercial with a bonus intensity zone overlay to office commercial and major site plan modification. This request will allow for the development of a daycare center. This item recommendation is also continuation to the July 26, 2023 Planning and Zoning Board meeting. Item 4C, ZON 23-00282, Mountain America Credit Union Mesa Branch, within the 4,900 block of South Power Road, located north of Ray Road on the east side of Power Road. Major site plan modification and amending the conditions of approval for case number ZON 21-00069. This request will allow for a bank with a drive-through. And recommendation for this case also is continued to the July 26, 2023 Planning and Zoning Board meeting. And that completes the consent agenda.
All right, thank you, Troy. Do we read 5A? We're good with that, okay, all right. With that, we'd like to vote on the consent agenda, so. A motion, actually, yeah, get a motion to vote on the consent.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second the
So
motion.
we have a first, second, all right, please vote. All right, within a unanimous 7 ayes and 0 noes, the consent agenda is approved. Thank you, everybody. With that, we're going to move on to the rest of the agenda items. Rachel, do we start with you with 3A?
Sure, Chair, board members. So our one item off of consent is 3A, which is ZON 23-00276. And it has a companion case for a preliminary plat, which is item 5A. And Josh is will be making that presentation.
Yes, this is for ZON 23-00276. Great, mic's working now. ZON 23-00276, Higley 202.
This is for a site plan review as well as preliminary plat review to allow for a contractor's office and associated contractor's yard. Here's the site located off of the east side of Higley Road on the north side of Thomas, just located north of the AZ Loop 202. The current zoning on site is light industrial, where this use is allowed by right. The current general plan designation on this site is employment, which allows for a wide variety of employment opportunities ranging in high quality settings, which this does meet. Here's the site photo looking from east onto Higley or from Higley. Here's the overall site plan, which includes the overall office, which is 2 stories, as well as the workshop located in the rear. Overall, here's the associated landscape plan with that site plan. And here's the proposed rendering, so you can get a scale of the overall office. As part of this, citizen participation was provided for notification within 500 feet, as well as HOAs in registered neighborhoods. We did receive a comment concern about the drainage in the area, and I do have the applicant here to provide additional information on that as well. But based off of that, staff finds that the overall site plan complies with the 2040 general plan, complies with the site plan review criteria of Chapter 69 of the MZO, as well as criteria within Section 9-6 for preliminary plat. Therefore, staff recommends approval with conditions.
All right, thank you, Josh. Any questions from the board on this presentation? Troy?
Let the applicant go first, not you.
You want to just hear from the applicant? We just got, what I think would be good though if we talk about some of the concerns first.
Okay.
Just so you can reply to those. Do you want me to do that or are you happy to?
So Josh, a couple of items that we talked about a little bit in study session. So with the property to the east, access for that, if you would talk about how that, if this property, if this cuts off access or how they have public access there?
Sure. So the site on the east side of this would require access off of 54th Street, which is located on the east side of this image. It's a little hard to tell because of the right-of-way isn't fully taken in that section yet. So they would have to make sure the proper right-of-way would be dedicated on that side, but access would be from 54th on the east side.
Okay. And Transportation Department was not anticipating that 54 would tie back over to Higley Road to loop back around or up?
Not at this time.
Got you. And then on the grading again, and when the applicant comes up, if they could talk about, there's some significant grade differences in the north. I mean, the full north property line, but especially up at the northeast corner, it looks like 22 feet of vertical difference. And so I guess I'll when the applicant speaks, to look to them to address some of that.
That's good. I think we can bring up the applicant.
All right. Thank you.
And could you state your name and address for us for the record?
My name is David Bond. I'm with BFH Group. Our address is 3707 East Southern Avenue here in Mesa, 85206. So to answer some of the questions, as far as, yeah, there's definitely significant grade. As of right now with our preliminary design, we've just looked at doing our best to balance the site, but knowing that there's going to have to be some kind of retaining walls. I know there's a question about drainage. We're aware of the offsite that potentially circumventing the site, which we're working with our hydrologist to ensure that that is not impeded, impacting anybody else upstream or down. So I don't know if there's anything specific to the terrain question, except, yeah, it's excessive. And so it's going to be a challenge to design for it. And we've made sure that the client understands there's going to be significant retainage. I think it's focused only in one or two specific areas, which is where there's a little bit of a ravine. And so yeah, that poses a little bit of a challenge, but fortunately it's not for the duration of the site, at least as far as the perimeter goes. So yeah, there are some challenges with the site for sure. And also to help mitigate that, I don't know if you guys noticed on the site plan, but we pushed some things away from both property lines to the north and to the south to give us some space to grade up or down and give us some liberty to make some things function a little bit better. It not only helps us with the earthwork, but it also helps us to tie in a little bit closer. Now you're talking about 10 or 12 feet, 25 feet to make that up isn't gonna do it. So that's why we're anticipating retaining walls, but we're gonna help mitigate that and minimize that as much as possible.
Any issues, so you have, that whole yard is on the second half of the site, correct? And that's, as far as surrounding the workshop, that's all?
That's open, yeah.
It's all, but
Yep.
it's impervious?
No, it's aggregate, I believe.
You're gonna do ag,
For
okay,
the
so
most
that'll
part.
help a little bit. I think some of the concerns that we have there is just looking at the site plan, and, this is planning and zoning, we understand that, but at the same time, when we're looking at it, there's just wasn't quite making some sense with how
Yeah,
you're gonna
no,
handle that.
totally,
So
yeah.
that's a concern that we have.
Okay, no,
So-
understood.
What else, Troy? do you-
Yeah, and so on the backyard area where, and the site plan shows that it's asphalt, right? It shows a Maricopa edge going around it.
what I thought.
It's not really real clear, actually, but if it
On
has a
the-
Maricopa edge, that assumes it's asphalt.
We're talking about the east?
No, the full back parking area.
Surrounding the workshop.
I was anticipating that's gonna be aggregate. Rauf, do you know if
It
that's?
says recycled asphalt paving, and then it has a Maricopa edge around it, so it looks like essentially recycled asphalt that's,
Impervious.
yeah. And
Is that intended to
then,
be asphalt, or is that gonna be, yeah?
You want me to approach the?
Sure, you can, yeah. If you could just state your name too for us.
Yeah, good afternoon. This is Rauf Mosavi from Mosavi Design Group for the architect for the project.
yeah, so what is the surface of the area around the bigger yard, around the asphalt? The site plan refers to, it looks like it's asphalt, and then with a thickened edge around the perimeter of it.
Yes, when we refer to Maricopa Edge, means there is no vertical curb around because these are like machinery that uses those area, and usually they start messing with those vertical curbs, so it's better not to have even curb there. I have seen it just messes with the curbs, so we don't do vertical curb around, and it's more flexible and more natural, and then surrounding is 20-foot landscaping, so.
Okay, yeah, the grading plan shows a curb there, and then the site plan shows the Maricopa edge, but then, so then it is essentially asphalt.
Yes,
That's a-
asphalt
yes,
ending to, and besides, the kind of asphalt used on the back, it doesn't work very well with the vertical curbs though. And it starts building up more, debris around the curb, so it's better to keep it natural and just glue down to the, ground. That's basically is the best way to do on the industrial side of the, Yeah.
And then on the, so on the, from the fence that separates the backyard area,
Correct.
there's, if you run along there, there's differences from your pavement grades of 11 feet on the west side to 14 feet to 22 feet on the northeast corner. And you have a 10-foot landscape tract, and your site plan shows a 6-foot masonry wall. Where's the masonry wall goes on the property line? And then the slope goes, so you have a little wall on the property line and then the 20-foot slope going up from the property line. There's not enough detail to really see what's going on here, and it looks like significant enough that unless are you proposing to build a 20-foot retaining wall with a 6-foot masonry wall on top of it?
Well, so I guess the answer is we'll have to take a closer look at how we would mitigate that. Right now, yes, he understands that there's going to be a retaining wall, and then the CMU wall, block wall, would be built on top of that. And so it would be, that's the intent right now. But if we need to do a tier system or something of that nature, that was going to be determined at final engineering.
So I guess the concern is we're approving a site plan here, but it sounds like with these changes you're talking about are likely going to change what the site plan looks like in that area.
No, I don't think so.
Within 10 feet, you're gonna go 22 feet vertical plus a 6-foot wall within your 10-foot tract.
No, not the, you're talking about the placement of the wall is gonna affect the overall site?
No, I'm talking about the grade difference on the northern property line that you show from your parking lot. You have your parking lot, and then you have a 10-foot tract, and then you have the property line. And there's a 14 to 22-foot vertical grade difference through there.
So you're talking about as, if we're looking at this on the, closer to the west side?
The north property line from,
North property line, but on
from
the west
west
side.
all the way to the east, all the way across. It's 10-foot plus, all the way across.
Okay, so on, the way the site plan is on the west side, we actually have, what is that, 25 feet, 40 feet? Okay, so we have significant more than just 10 feet to work with as far as grading and tiering that. So yeah, I'm not sure where the 10 feet come from unless it's calling out maybe a setback.
The site plan says 10-foot landscape tract along the north property line. That's where I'm getting it from. Seems like there's some details here that maybe aren't fully worked out. between
No,
the
we
two.
are aware of it. Per zoning, because we are facing to L1 next to LI next to us, so it's going to require 10 foot, 5 foot actually, and we are giving 10-foot landscape there. Now this preliminary site, of course, shows 6 foot throughout because that's the minimum everybody does it. But based on the civil study and civil construction documentation, we're going to end up to work on it. And if there are limitations on the height, then it's going to end up to, you know, at the wall. Still, we have room to go back to 5 foot. So I may do double wall, you know, like one wall higher, one wall lower, and between 5 foot landscape. So still, we have kept that idea. But it all depends because it varies in the height. So we have to really go into construction documentation phase, understanding exactly what are the, you know, foot by foot changes on the height so we can mitigate that throughout the site. So the front is going to be 6 foot, but as far as it goes to the height and different elevation, we'll play with natural, you know, land to maintain that with different type of wall. But you could go 2 walls into that 10 foot. There's no problem because I need only 5 foot per zoning.
So final, or at least the last question I have is there then has there been any discussion or agreement with the property owner to the north over easement or ability to build the wall or what that wall will look like? Because they'll certainly be significantly impacted by
Most
what that
definitely,
looks
we're
like.
gonna try to stay 6 foot appearance to the neighbor. So if there is more digging or, you know, coming back next to the neighbor, so we're gonna try to eat from our side rather than there. So we're gonna stay that 6 foot, we're talking at the highest point that they appear 6 foot. Then if it gets to our land, then because we wanna get access from Higley and there are some grading there. So if we go below, then we're gonna create secondary wall if necessary. I mean, you guys are gonna calculate that. Maybe more toward east side than west side. As we go to west, it gets better, isn't it? So
Well,
as we go to, no?
It's still 10 feet plus. It's a lot.
Yeah, we
so
can go 10-foot wall or if it's.
10 foot
if it's-
plus 6 feet, so 16
Well,
feet.
we have to, you know, we usually do in double wall and do some landscaping between, like everywhere you have seen it. When you wanna
I've seen it,
Yeah, when you eat the height, you come back in multiple walls with some landscaping between. Actually looks more beautiful than just one wall. And then, you know, the vegetation can fall into second wall, so it looks better actually.
So I just so you know, I don't think it's necessarily a worry from us from an aesthetic or anything like that. What we're worried about is seeing this and trying to understand it because we do think it's going to impact the site plan. And that's what we're asked to do today is just approve the site plan.
Well, for neighbor standpoint of view, no, you're gonna see a fence wall.
Okay,
Now, in our point of view, we're gonna go low or high. We're gonna manage that because of certain height, perhaps construction document level. Building is gonna ask that, you know, stay to certain height because of, you know, barrier and retaining and all those matters. and they have, I'm sure, some limitation on the height, then we can double those walls as we necessarily need. If we don't need it, we don't need it to do that. So for neighbor, I don't think it's gonna be that much, I mean, it's just a wall.
Anything else?
Just a question for staff, but I'll ask it after.
Okay. Any other questions for the, nope, everybody, okay, thank you, guys. So I know you have a question for staff as well, Troy, but we'll do that during discussion, actually, we'll do that later. So, no other questions from the board. I do know we also have one comment card for this item as well. So I'll go ahead and read this. It looks like they're not asking to speak. Is that true, Nicole?
I am asking to speak.
You are asking to
Did I
speak.
not mark that?
No, you are not, but you'd like to speak. Okay, so should I read the card or just let her speak? Yeah, why don't you come up, Nicole, and speak then? And if you could, just state your name and your address for us for the record,
Okay.
please.
You guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
My name is Nicole Smale, and I live at 3845 North Higley Road, where I've lived since 2002. I am here on behalf of Stephen Wright, the property owner of the land north of the proposed build. And I'd like to start by saying that I think it's ridiculous to come to a planning and zoning meeting with site plans that aren't correct. There are so many lies and mistruths within this that I'm about to dive into, and I will get through this quickly. Josh stated in his staff presentation that this build is in compliance with the City of Mesa 2040 general plan. That may be, but this does not align with the Falcon Field sub-area plan. It doesn't sound like a 40-foot tall building obscuring the view of Red Mountain fits the narrative of what has been anticipated for the Falcon District. The Falcon Field sub-area wanted aviation-related businesses. This type of construction belongs in Apache, Tonopah, Buckeye, or even Central Phoenix, where the rest of the construction laydown yards are. The plans presented today are a revision of previously presented plans that we were quite upset about in the past, with the setbacks, the site walls, drainage, non-completion of 54th Street. Most of our concerns were ignored. We reached out to the architect to voice our concerns, and we heard nothing in response. Stated in Jeff's staff report was that my family and I only had concerns with drainage and that the architect smoothed that over. That's not true. No one has contacted us, and we have not heard anything. The citizen participation report also states we were notified of a neighborhood participation meeting. That is not true either, but we strongly urge one before this moves forward. Discussing site setbacks and site walls. The setbacks in this plan are incorrect. This project is sandwiched between two residential properties. It is only the front half of our property that is zoned light industrial. So this will be 10 feet away from my son's swing set. The proposed site walls are unacceptable. Ideally, they should be 8 foot tall from a finished floor. And we do not want to see uncovered storage like we are already seeing to the east of us at Jim's Water Trucks at 3735 North 54th Street. Photos are attached in this presentation and can be emailed. The relevance of Jim's Water Truck Company is he is the same property owner / applicant, and we don't want his storage in our backyard. We fear that he's moving it over there. Drainage. As I have pointed out previously, the dishonesty in Josh's staff report. No one has discussed drainage with any residents, and this has not been resolved. There needs to be adequate drainage plan with water retention, as I believe you guys agree with that as well. The discussion on 54th Street, I actually have the project narrative right here. They're saying that that's where the access point is going to be. The project narrative says that it's all going to be filtered in through Higley Road. So that is not what we were told. I don't know why that's being presented to you today. But we are aware that 54th Street is an undeveloped road as it stands today, even though it is considered a frontage street in the project narrative. If there's going to be any new construction, why is 54th Street being ignored, left to look as rowdy as it does? As a community, we need to look at the whole picture and not slap these new construction Band-Aids to the north and ignore the west. This is why we need a neighborhood participation meeting, because there is a lot of unconnected dots here to discuss the whole picture. 54th Street needs to be completed with through traffic. I know they stated that today, but I don't see that in any documents that I have or on the site plan. Finally, we do support the growth of the neighborhood. Ever since I was a little girl, I knew that this land was made for light industrial. I know that's what belongs there. But a construction laydown yard, it does not belong in the Falcon District, and it does not align with the Falcon Field sub-area plan. There needs to be a neighborhood participation meeting before anything moves forward, and I would like to state our concerns so they don't get ignored again, which would be the setbacks, drainage, completion of 54th Street, the site walls, and, I was gonna state again that this project is not ready to move forward. But thank you for your time, and I have faith that you all respect the Falcon Field sub-area plan more than what has been presented to you today. Thank you.
Thank you. So bring up, yeah, Josh, we come back up.
Yes. So it was provided to me that I provided the information from Nicole. She did provide me emails. I did reach out to the applicant to reach out to them. It was conveyed to me that they did, but I do understand the concern that they might have not have reached out to you. And so I will relate to I know the concern with 54th. It is possible that Nicole has an earlier version of the narrative where they were looking to do the complete site of the whole LI portion. That is being shown here. They have reduced the size of that due to they had an industrial spec for the first half of that building, and they're looking just to do the allowed by right construction contractor's office. So that's why, since they no longer have frontage on 54th, they are no longer have any impact to 54th, so they are not required. All access will be off of Higley, as shown on the site plan.
Any questions for Josh, guys, on this?
Josh, is there what is code limitations for retaining wall height, maximum heights or maximum height of tiered walls if it's a tiered wall condition, as far as what those look like?
I do not recall that off the top of my head for retention for wall height.
Chair, Board Member Peterson. So it follows our typical wall height standard. So typically it's a 6 foot. If it's in a storage yard or screening outdoor storage, it's 8 feet. But the way that we measure it, so if we have a wall on top of a retaining wall, then it's measured from the highest point of where the grade hits the retaining wall. That makes sense.
On the inside or the outside?
So if this was the retaining wall and then there was a fence on top of it, it would be measured from the top of the retaining wall.
So is there a maximum for a retaining wall?
It would
height?
just follow our standard 6 foot.
No,
the retaining wall.
so the screen wall is the 6 feet or the 8,
Oh,
whatever it ends
sorry.
up being. But then the retaining wall below that, if that's 10, 12, 20 feet height-wise.
I'm not aware of any
steps in?
regulations about that.
And is there, if a wall is tiered, if they take a retainer, if they have 10 feet to retain and they go 5 feet and then a tier and then 5 feet and a tier, is there a code for what the width of what that tier is so that it can be landscaped or that type of thing?
Chair, Board Member Peterson, I've been trying to look while we've been talking about that. I haven't found any requirements about that, but I'll continue to look.
Okay, thanks.
That's a good question. I don't think that there's anything from retaining wall that I know.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, any other questions for Josh or for the applicant at this time? No. Okay. Oh, you got one?
So Josh, does staff stand by its recommendation? Do you have any concerns after you've heard some of the questions that have been brought up today?
Yeah, no, I think certainly, based off of kind of our earlier discussions at study session, I think a condition just to verify if there are any changes to assure that there aren't any impacts to the site plan, whether that be fall under a minor or major, it would fall, I would think it would be concurrent with that. But the use is allowed by right, so it's not a usage question on this for staff. The general plan destination is employment. While the sub area is important for this area as well, the general plan does dictate that within the zoning, the use is allowed by right. So the overall general plan destination of employment would be the one that supports this and allow for that multiple uses of different employment opportunities. So while certainly I do understand the more aviation aspects that we're trying to occur in the Falcon Field area, if the use is allowed by right, there's no mechanism for me to stop that use. So I would possibly recommend to provide another condition to resolve the concerns with the elevation changes and things like that. But overall, the recommendation would be the same since they would be meeting the requirements of the use and site plan review.
Okay. Thank you, Josh. You good?
And I guess the follow-up would be, do you have specific language that we could
I would look
hear?
to legal for that.
Okay,
So Chair Board Member Peterson, so we did find some regulations are within the subdivision ordinance. And they talk about a wall or a terrace combination of walls used for retaining should not be more than 18 inches. It cannot retain more than 18 inches of earth.
that
So
would
you'd
be
have to
significant
tier.
site plan impact
Yeah.
at that point, okay. Want to bring up the applicant back to respond to anything from a comments as far as from the public or anything, if you guys would like to respond.
So I guess the best response is a lot of the questions are questions on engineering and is the site going to work and the impacts that it would have. And most of this we have to, if not all of it, we have to be compliant. And we go through the whole rigor mortis with the city staff again, as far as making sure that we're compliant with code standards and Troy, you know the process in and out. So we have to do that anyways. That's part of it. We understand that your concern is it's going to affect the site plan. I agree with Josh that if it does, it changes the site plan. Let's come back. Let's talk. If it doesn't, then we didn't lose time and we can continue on. But yeah, that was just one point that I was noticing was all this are questions in our final design that it'll come out there and it's typical for a site plan that if we've got to change it due to our design, we come back. So that's a normal part of the process for us. So I fully agree with that. As far as drainage, obviously we don't want to flood anybody. We don't want the liability, and we don't want to pass that liability on to anybody else. So that's a very important part for us. And then the other question, and I fully understand all the concerns. I unfortunately wasn't part of the citizens participation plan or anything of that nature. So I didn't receive any of these questions myself, but the setbacks, even though we have minimum setbacks established based by the zoning code, the building is significantly further away. And so and personally, I'm more than happy to speak with them, on a one-on-one basis so that we can resolve any other questions, concerns specific to this site plan. So.
All right, thank you. Yes. Oh, looks like we have one more question for you.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on the public outreach. Who was responsible? You said you weren't involved in the citizen participation. Who was involved in the public outreach?
Well, as Josh is aware and he could provide you guys documents, we sent 3 times letters in the vicinity. Now, if somebody received or didn't receive, it's like personal responsibility, but we did it. And actually, we don't send those letters out, so we skip and don't do the one that is like against. Josh does that. So we send all the envelopes to Josh. Josh and City of Mesa sends that to neighbors. We heard some of the neighbors, not with the name, but especially one perhaps was the person who was talking before, and we listened to them. This building used to be on the west side. On the east side, and we brought it to the west closer to Higley. So we did our chore. We brought the building as close as possible to the street and, public. Higley is a very public street. It's not a little street, and we kept the 54 non-touched. And it's a quiet land between them and our property. I'm sure they reside in 54, not facing Higley. Higley, I don't think there is any objection on it. We didn't hear anything, even south or north. It's more people are toward 54. And because we listened to them, we knew 54 is very private. I drove myself there. I took a lot of photos, and I recommended to owner that, we developed more closer to Higley than those areas. And who knows what we're gonna end up to design there. I'm sure at that time they can oppose, whatever is the correct right there. But that's future. Right now, we're doing whatever is the proper zoning is, and we have a lot of setbacks, landscaping all around. On the south side, we have 20 foot, if you look at it. On the north side, we have 10 feet. We could be 5 foot on that area. And the reason I did Maricopa County edge and not vertical curb, because we don't want to limit with asphalt there. In case if we need to push that in, it's all flexibility. It's not car parking there. It's just for the workshop there. So the chance that the car is gonna park there is like 1 in a million. No car goes on that back. So mostly it's like inside the building and servicing that based on the business need is. Parking is gonna be more on the good-looking office side. That's what you're gonna see the standard cars there parked. And if there is any problem, our lot is gonna be lower than everybody else. 54 is in height. So 6 foot is gonna block most building of us. Now, if you guys require 10 foot, we can go 10 foot. Some cities, they don't like to see, 10-foot wall. If you guys are okay, we could go 10 foot. I'm not against any height of the wall or anything.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Right.
You're good. And oh,
Just,
more.
if I could just follow up, in the issue of a public or a neighborhood meeting, did you decide not to hold a neighborhood meeting? How did you receive the comments from the neighbors that you incorporated into your design?
It was like 1 or 2, and then we thought we answered through Josh and ourselves in our new revised design. We were waiting for them to call us back or tell us their point of view. We never heard anything. I don't know what those people were talking about. I mean, we didn't hear it. We're very friendly. I mean, I'm always available in our phones, so I did not see any resistance there. It was just one time that Josh had it, and we did listen, and we moved the building farther to Hickley. And we got site plan approved, so our design review is approved already. 7-0. I mean, there was no objection. Why these guys weren't there even? I mean, I don't understand that part. So we've been, sending letters out through Josh and through city. So I don't know.
All right, thank you. I think just so different purviews, right? The design review is looking at the building. We don't have any issues with the building design. What we're seeing is some discrepancy on the site that are a little bit worrisome to us, that's all. The information might be there, but it's not clearly provided to us, and then we're hearing different things. So, we have to work with what we have. So I appreciate it.
I mean, there was a mention of building doesn't look good for the, design review was quite
You guys
good.
got through the design review. That's not our purview. We don't, and we've had no issues or concerns there.
Just wanted to answer. But yeah, I mean, as David mentioned, we are willing to meet with them even in my office or their place and
That'd be good.
explain to them more in detail
Okay,
what we're
thank
doing.
you. Any other questions at all? Good. Oh, you got another one?
Not for the applicant. The only other question, I would at some point like to hear some proposed language
Yeah,
for
I think we'll close the
stipulation.
public meeting for this one, we'll have discussions. That work? Okay. With that, we'll close that with the public, and then, yeah, I'd like to have a discussion as well. So do you want to start with that, or is there any other things you guys want to discuss first on the case before we, or if there's anybody who wants to make a motion, I'm good with that too.
Just I guess, share some thoughts that have already been shared, but to restate is that where site plan approval is before us, I'm all for a typical, if there's things that can be worked out of condition or work it through the design process. In this case, those are significant enough to where with what the responses have been, it's still not clear that it's not going to have some pretty major changes to the site plan. And so I would not be in favor of the site plan as presented. And then to couple on to that, the lack of the neighborhood communication that has occurred, and I think a high need to have some, the residence is literally, the house itself is just a few feet from that north property line, and we're talking 15 feet vertical plus the 6-foot wall on top of that, right? 15, 20 feet from someone's house I think there needs to be some more discussion there. I'm not comfortable with approving this as it is.
And Chair, board members, if I may just lay out a few options that might help
That'd be great.
guide your discussion a bit. So with changes to site plans in our code, you may or may not know there's minor and there's major changes. So some would stick with staff per our code and some would come back to the board. You have the option of adding a condition of approval that would require any changes or modifications or new development plans to come back to this board if you didn't want to leave some of those minor ones with staff. So that we could add a condition of approval like that, and I can read you exact language. So what I'm trying to say is if a change is big enough, you wouldn't necessarily need a condition of approval on it. It would just be if you want minor changes to also come back to the board, that's where you would need to add a condition of approval.
And if I could just follow up on that, but it sounds like there will be changes required to the site plan. And so I agree with the comments of Board Member Peterson on this. I'm a little uncomfortable approving a site plan if we think that it will certainly be coming back here for additional review.
And so for the approval of a site plan, I also want to just point to that you have limited discretion, and then there's various review criteria in the zoning ordinance. So if you were going to make a motion to either continue it, you have that discretion, or you could make a motion to deny approval of it. And you would just want to make sure it's based on criteria set forth in the zoning code, and it's section 1169-5. So any sort of denial is within that review criteria. It's not full discretion like a rezoning would be.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, Jeffrey.
And I'll just tell you what I'm thinking. I mean, I don't want to deny a site plan on this project, but I'm uncomfortable with whether it's fully baked and ready to move forward. So I would be inclined to support maybe a motion to continue this at this time and give the applicant additional time to look at some of these issues, see if there's any changes that will be required to the site plan, and then it also talk to the neighbors a little bit more about the project and then come back. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think that a continuance would be in order, especially, to talk to the neighbors. Because then we could have a discussion about not only the concerns that you have, but also to see if they've talked to the neighbors and reached an agreement that way too.
Continuance is certainly within your discretion. Just wanted to make those options clear.
Would you like?
So I'd like to hear, I guess, from Board Member Peterson. You've kind of been leading the charge a little bit on some of these questions. How do you feel about a continuance?
Yeah, I think that's certainly appropriate because we're lack of complete information and lack of complete communication with the neighbors. And so time will give time to both get the design to a point where it's more clear what's happening, and then also to have the communication directly with the neighbors and to work out something that's a meaningful resolution. Because it is, I mean, there's it's I get it what the zoning is here with the light industrial, but the reality is you're next to somebody's house, and so we have the process because it's meaningful and it's part of code to work with the neighbors, and that's what a city does, is to get these things to come together, and it sounds like that hasn't happened here, so it sounds like there needs to be more time to do that.
Chair and board members, just wanted to recommend if you are considering continuing it, that you consider continuing it to a date certain, just because of the noticing requirements and the delay that it might cause if we do it to a date uncertain.
And so then I guess it would be what's a date for both for the applicant to do their work, to have the communication, and to come up with something. Is that, yeah? What does staff have a recommendation for what that time frame is?
I don't have a recommendation, but I can tell you our next Planning and Zoning Board meeting is on the 26th.
Or the 9th of August.
And then the 9th of August, like the chair was saying.
26 seems really soon, right, to address some of the stuff.
So it would be August 9th.
Yeah, and if neither one of those are enough time, the following one would be August 23rd.
And just a reminder, if you do make a motion to continue, make sure you include 5A in that as well, so that they're both in the motion.
So would anybody like to make a motion? I think a 4-week personally is appropriate. That would be, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Gives them enough time.
You gonna make me do all the reading today?
What's your pleasure on this one? You're the more the expert on this, but
August 9th seems reasonable. So.
I'll go ahead and make a motion that we continue item 3A and a companion case, agenda item 5A.
You have to read out
The whole thing, okay. So I would move that we continue item 3A, which is case ZON 23-00276, Higley 202 Industrial Commerce District 5, within the 3800 block of North Higley Road, east side, located east of Higley Road and north of Thomas Road, site plan review. This request will allow for an industrial development. The staff recommendation is approval with conditions, but I would move that this case, as well as item 5A, which is ZON 23-00276, preliminary plat, Higley 202 Industrial Commerce, District 5, within the 3800 block of North Higley Road, east side, located east of Higley Road and north of Thomas Road, preliminary plat for an industrial development. Again, staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Both of these items, I would move that they be continued to the August 9th, 2023 board meeting.
You have a second?
I'll second that.
With that, we have a second. We would please everybody vote on the. Okay, with a unanimous, everyone voting yes to move this to the August 9th, 2023, as far as continuing that. Anything else from staff that we need to do at this time?
Chair, no, that's all that's on the agenda.
All right, thank you. Can I have a motion to adjourn the board meeting?
I will move that we adjourn the board meeting.
Second.
I'll second that again.
All right, and everybody vote. All right, with that, we are adjourned from the board meeting. Thank you.